Hello again. I'm back. I'm going to do the second part of this video about the the mass shootings, mind control, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about first contact and aliens, and maybe a couple other things. Let's see where it goes. Um, so let me start off where I started off last time, and I talked about how Earth was Earth and the universe, and so many changes that are happening around Earth, around us, and within the universe, and how it is affecting the human body, the human spirit, and the human mind. Even if you yourself are not fully aware of this, it definitely does have an effect on how we act and how we think and how we live our day-to-day lives. If you go all the way back to the 2004 earthquake, to the Haiti earthquake, to the Chile earthquake, and all the way up to the Japan earthquake, that's four different earthquakes that knocked us just slightly off our axis, not too much. And maybe the knocking us off our axis is the wrong term of it. But basically, from my understanding, it either sped up our days just by like a couple milliseconds, or like it reduced our days by a couple milliseconds. The people that watch this can, yeah, you probably Google it. Maybe I should have before I did, but I know it did either one. The human body is aware of this, okay? And a lot of these terrible, terrible things that are happening. Okay, first, let me go into the universal effect it has on us, how those changes that affect us. But then let's also talk about the human effect and the other force that is currently also participating in the control of how we act and how we think and how we live our day-to-day lives, which is alien, and it does exist, or it's extra-dimensional. If it's extra dimensional, that's a whole different level because, yeah, for a lot of reasons, and or if it's blue beam, I believe that MK Ultra exists, and it exists in many different forms. It doesn't have to be a satellite that zaps into your head. However, I do think that something like that exists because there's a lot of reasons why, and based on something, I've talked about meditations and dreams and visions. I've had some crazy ones, and I'll talk on YouTube about them, even going back to my childhood, the ones I can remember, and I remember a lot of them. Um, Let me get back on track. I'm really sorry about that. Um, so going back into the mind control part, talking about MK Ultra on the different forms. Um, some of that, the higher technology. When I talk about like when people think of blue beam or HARP, you think of satellite or power grids and how they control the weather and how they control earthquakes. Well, that is an alien technology. It is a technology that was given to us. It wasn't actually given to us, but it was given to the wrong people for obvious reasons. Along with some of the more traditional psyops that have existed here, that were created by humans to control other humans. And honestly, going back to that, there could have been alien influence, and there more than likely was. But if there was, or extra-dimensional being influence, it was probably done so not in a direct way, but more into like um, how would I explain this? Almost like when someone uses the force. I know that's going to sound really goofy, make a lot of you laugh. It is, a similar way. These beings can control what we say. And some people could argue, well, what if you're under that influence? I'm not under that influence. There's a lot of reasons why. Um, um, uh, so basically, when it comes to the extra-dimensional beings and to whether or not they gave us the more traditional psyops we use, whether it's what was it, Baghdad Betty in the Iraq, the first Gulf War, or Tokyo Tammy in World War II. Now we have different psyops, and our psyops are violent psyops. If you look back on police shows from like the 60s and 70s, you saw people get shot, but you didn't really see decapitated bodies. You didn't see gutted bodies. They didn't really cover so many messed up topics. I mean, they maybe covered rape, but they never got into detail of what it was. So if a child saw it, it probably affected them to an extent, but not to a severe extent, to the point where it was etched in their mind. However, that was partially the beginning of it, but it's not really when it really took off. Um, when it took off, I would have to say probably in the early 90s, late 80s, when there was already a lot of violence maybe in films, but look at like horror movies, you look back at those horror movies, they're so cheesy, now, they're like on a whole new level, I mean, down to the fine detail. Um, in the 90s, you had or you didn't really have movies, but you had like the gangster rap era, and that's not rap's fault. That's mostly the government's fault, because a lot of that was created to make people, to influence the youth of that time period, along with the grunge rock era, which once again, the music was, a lot of people will agree that was some great music during that time period, but the government used it to control what the kids did during that time period and how they turned out. Um, everything from Kurt Cobain's death all the way to the gangster rap and how it affected. Think about when the gangster rap happened, it went into the suburbs, and it gave basically what it was doing. That was the beginning of, how do I explain this? It's really hard to explain, actually. They want us to be violent, right? They want us to be violent because if we're violent, then they can control us better. And in the 90s, what happened from that era, right? There was more gun control put on America and on the rest of not so much the rest of the world, but there was more gun control put on us, okay? There was, you know, uh, it did some good. It broke some barriers, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people didn't have to die for that to happen. You understand what I'm saying? And that's what, if it's like with certain psyops, or in this particular one, I kind of feel that what they basically did, and this is my own observation, being as old as I am now, and looking back on that, is I believe that they just made us do it the hard way. Humans have this major a problem with having to do everything the hard way. We learned from World War One, we got a little bit better, but not much, because we had World War Two, and then after World War Two, we started having these smaller conflicts, so we didn't have to directly deal with the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union didn't have to directly deal with us, which is great, but it left a lot of unopened, open wounds, or whatever you want to say. The 60s, some of the psyops that took place then were good, and we had the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement needed to happen, but a lot of things didn't change. In the 60s and 70s, I don't think we were really getting beat that hard with the psyop yet, at least not with this type of psyops we're dealing with today. But basically, by the gangster rap era, and I know I got off on a tangent again, so hopefully you made it through that. But on the gangster rap era, it caused a lot of kids to really start fantasizing about things they should have never fantasized about. We stopped caring. In school, there's always been, some people don't really care about academics, but really, they really pushed us away from that. And, the early 90s is when that began. Valid, you had a lot of people that still got into the environment. Some of those things began, where we started getting more into the environment and to the to protecting it, and that became more popular, and that was the slow beginning of that, but that's been a long journey with that one. I mean, we still have people that don't want to, and valid, it's not all our fault. There are things in the universe that are taking place that are causing some of the changes here on Earth, but, our carbon imprint has some of it, regardless, that's my opinion. It really does. Fukushima, Deepwater Horizon, you can't say that didn't affect Earth in a negative way, because it did. Um, and it continues to this day. Go to Radiation Network and see for yourself, and look back in the archives. It's not the same anymore. From 2011 till now, there's a lot of areas that are in the low 60s, but sometimes they tip out in the high 60s, and that's not normal. And even the high 50s is still not normal. It's below. It's below normal status, but it's still high radiation, whether you like to admit it or not. But when you go back to that era, and you go back to the gangster rap era, it affected kids in a very negative way. And then the riots happened. Then things got a little better for a while, right? At least that's what we thought. And then the 90s kind of went by. And the end of the 90s is when that violent, well, actually, the end of the 90s is when, they put the race thing on it. So my belief on that, I'm not against recreational drug use if that's your choice, but if you're an adult and adults, ecstasy shouldn't be in the hands of little kids. And during the late 90s, they had 14-year-olds taking that. They made movies. They made it a fad. They put the MDMA on the street. And the reason they did that, how many 30-year-olds during that era who took a lot of ecstasy who are on pharmaceutical meds now? Because you drained all your serotonin, not your fault, well, not totally your fault, you still had free will, but they caused that. They caused you to do that. And now they have control over you because they're able to give you those meds. And they're able to control you through those medications. You understand? And I know that sounds kind of wacky, but it's very true. During the 60s, a lot of adults were experimenting with drugs. It wasn't so much little junior high and little high school kids. And they changed that in the late 90s. I mean, they kind of changed it in the 80s, but even in the 80s, it wasn't as rampant as it was in the late 90s. There was a cocaine problem, but look at what kind of drugs hit the streets and the scene in the late 90s. I was lucky, I didn't get as hard into that as I did when I was in my adults after I came back from Iraq and stuff. Um, the thing is those kids with brains barely developing who got into this, their brains didn't develop to the full extent of what they were supposed to. And now, that's why you have us in this recession that's ongoing. It never seems to end, and now things get a little bit better. But, look how it's hard for a lot of people in my generation, in the late Gen Y, or the early Gen Y, sorry, that can really maintain and could go on. And now we're at this point. I'm going to get a little bit more into the violent stuff, and then I'm going to go into the violent stuff that's happened in the last couple weeks and where it's coming from, or part of where it's coming from. And so let's go into the 2000s and horror movies and the dramatic turn they took and how graphic they are. And there's nothing, if you're into that genre, the thing is little kids shouldn't see it. However, I'll go into like movies, and I hope I don't get copyrighted for this, but movies like Halloween 2, there's a beheading scene. And the reason why I talk about this is because it's very graphic, and the sounds that the guy makes when he's being beheaded. When I was in Iraq, we had to watch a lot of those videos of people being beheaded. Anybody who's seen that knows how graphic and how gory that is. And it was almost like they used the voice of a real person dying and put it in the place of that person dying. And for a little kid to possibly see that, oh, well, you should hide it from your kids. Well, it's not that easy. You have something that violent out there. I don't know the answer to this, okay? I don't know the answer to this. There just shouldn't be so many movies that are this violent, whether you like it or not. It's affecting you. Iraq affected me in a different way. I deal with tragedies in a whole different way, but let me tell you something. You people out there, let me ask you, anybody watching this, okay? If you went to Batman the day after the shooting happened, guess what? You're one of those people, whether you believe it or not. Whether you believe it or not, you are, okay? Because that was almost, or not almost, it was an advertisement. And let me tell you, it's really hot in here. I'm wearing this because I don't want to show my face. For a lot of reasons. So when you see me sweating, it's because I'm wearing a hoodie in the middle of a room. We don't control the heater in our apartment, and it just turns on, so it is burning up in here. But it is what it is. You're one of those people, if you went and saw that movie, whether you believe it, you may argue with me, but it's true. And when you look at the style, once again, I talked about this before, the type of shooting that was, it was just so odd. Everybody would say that, but to me, it's just so odd, and I'm telling you, I get these through my dreams, and maybe it's my own intuition when it comes to this. I don't know, but it comes from somewhere, and when you're shown and you're told that this is what it was, it just blows your fucking mind away when you really look at it. You realize that, yeah, it was really fucking odd. And I put the effort in there because it deserves that. It deserves a fucking, because it was odd. Okay? It was something about it wasn't right. And just the style and the way he just sat there in his car. How many times is it going to have to happen before we all start calling him out on it? Every time there's always a second shooter that's never, explored. Now, I know some of that comes from mass hysteria, but, in the Newton shooting, there's something real different about this one. You understand? The zombie attack, all these things, right? When I look at the culture of violence we live in, this combined with whatever up above is controlling us as well. And I'm going to talk about this in later films, but when it comes to heaven and hell and right and wrong and good or bad, it's all from extra dimensional, alien, and it's beings that were already here. Hell isn't really a place, but it's a dimension more or less. You understand what I'm saying? It's it's darkness, and it's taken everything over. And there is good in the universe, and there's other beings that are with us. And you guys got to prepare yourself for that knowledge because it's coming. It's coming. Whether you believe it or not, it's going to happen soon. You know, they're preparing us for it, and I promise you it's going to happen soon. But the darkness, the ones that want to make us their pets, the ones that are going to make us our slave, here on Earth they have more control. In the universe, they can help us. Valid, they can. The darkness that exists here on Earth can still go out in the universe and still can reign. You know, can still cause them madness and still cause them. You know, there's always good and bad. You know, but it's not just here on Earth. The thing is, this species should never be confined to one planet because you belong on more than one. You belong in the universe like every other species, you know. There's something wrong with New World Order, but there's nothing wrong with one world. You understand? And that's what they don't want to tell you. Okay, and even, you know, you as a species, you have the right to defend yourself, okay? So, you know, and that's something you guys got to realize is you have some people that don't want to participate in that. Okay, you don't want to participate in the hurting of other beings, and that's good. But you got to also take into consideration that there's people that exist in this world that want to defend themselves and you, right? And unfortunately, when it comes to America, you always have the wrong that voice on this. You know, you got a lot of these crazy Tea Party people. You got a lot of these crazy right-wingers. And I'm not talking all right-wingers because there's some legit right-wingers. Okay, there's some legit people in the Republican Party. They're not all bad and they're not all crazy, but you have some other ones that are just, they're not good. You know, I'm sorry. And even on the liberal side, maybe they don't tote guns, but some people on the liberal side are just generally not good people. You know what I mean? But however, there's a lot of good that exists here on Earth that, you know, you don't have to be a part of a political party. You can just be human, and you can evolve past this if you just evolve past it. You know, but it's hard for you to do because there's Honey Boo Boo Survivor. There's Ultimate Fighting Championship on Fox at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. Your kid doesn't always have to see somebody beating their head in. If you're afraid your son's going to be weak, you know, put him in karate. But, you know, karate teaches them discipline and teaches them not to be bullies. You know, do something like that, but teach them to, you know, when they have to, you know, defend yourself, but don't teach them to hurt other people just to do it because you're afraid of that's your own insecurities. You know, and when it comes to, you know, just violence being on TV. Like I said, there doesn't need to be a bunch of CSIs and people being decapitated, and you know, there doesn't need that. You know, you gotta get past that point. You know, the apocalypse theme in movies didn't end when 2012 passed. You want to know why? Because you know, the world isn't gonna end right away. You have a choice. However, there are some things that are going to come up in 2013, and you better believe they're going to happen because they are. You know, give it time. You'll see for yourself. They're going to prepare us for it. They're going to start preparing it for us in weird ways. And I'm going to talk about some of these things in later fucking videos, but you're going to see for yourself. They're going to start preparing us in weird, subtle ways for new planets, new beings, and contact. And the thing is, we're in the middle of a war. We're in the middle of a war that's been going on around us for a very long time. This planet, you know, some beings that created us, you know, when you hear about the Anunnaki, right? Some of them were good, some of them were bad. They are not the true creators of all, okay? There is a creator that is beyond them, okay? That is the creator of everything, alright? They created us, but even those that created us, some of them were good. Where do you think angels came from? That's because they saved us. You know, some people get a pet and they adore their pets, right? Some people get a pet and they beat their pets and they do atrocious, terrible things to them, right? The thing is, that's what has happened to us. And right now, the people or the beings, or the people and the beings, the ones that are helping the people on Earth that are controlling us, and whether or not this has to do with bloodlines, there's a lot of things on YouTube and on Google that are really great. I don't know. That part, you know, I don't know. You know, I can just tell you what has come to me in dreams and in meditations, and especially in the last year, because they became so much more intense. Like, you have no idea. Like, it's just crazy stuff. And I'm not the only one. And there's a message out there being relayed to some of us out here, and I know it sounds crazy, but it's real, and it's true. It's coming from somewhere. And you have these ones that want to help us and want us to progress and evolve, but you have these other ones that want us to stay here. And honestly, I don't know who's going to win. And I want to believe that good is going to prevail. And I do, because, some parts of the Bible are real, and there's lost gospels, and there's, your own intuition. A lot of people have gotten in to even I got into this meditation while mainly to go and see what it was, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. However, I'm not going to get into this yet. I'm going to do this on the next one because then I get over the tangent. I'm going to stick with the mind control and what's going on with that. And when I say these dark beings that exist here on this planet, they are the ones controlling us right now. Everything from these shootings, the zombies, this is all real. That chemical that washed up shore in Florida, that chemical is linked to this, right? All this stuff is real, right? They're putting a psyop on us. They're trying to control us. The fiscal cliff is a psyop. All this stuff is a psyop. They want to control you, everybody's emotions. They want to take everything away from you. And when they do and they have you with nothing, it's going to be easy to take you over and get you to agree. The one thing that got me about the Occupy movement, and I was a part of that for a little bit, and it was an amazing time period of my life, even though a lot of people would say that it was government ran. Yeah, it was. It was definitely started by Dems, but it was overthrown by some good people. And God, you heard a lot of bad stuff. These people were like, a lot of these people are poor. A lot of these people have lost everything, and they're trying whatever they can do to get back on their feet, just like everybody else in the world. And that's easier said than done. But, the one thing that got me is some of the people were given $7 an hour jobs, which there's nothing wrong with that. But, they're taking it and they're just accepting it. They're just accepting the fact that America's, segregating itself from the rest of the world. They're accepting the fact that Iran is doing the same thing, China. They're accepting the fact that humanity is not together, and that's the way it's supposed to be, but it's not. You are not. You are not meant to be apart. You are a family. You are a family. Hundreds and thousands of years ago, this race was a family. You understand? Understand? The people that get this far on this video, I hope you understand, because that's what humanity was. And that's been taken away from you, and it's been lost, and, it's up to you to come to that conclusion. Once again, New World Order bad, One World good. There's a difference. It's not about one religion, it's about universal religion, and it exists all within the universe. And it's up to you to find it. It's up to your whole species to get to that point. And as long as these beings, along with these humans, continue to control the planet and just outside the universe, things are going to get a lot harder. Just read between the lines. Look at the Batman, the way that happened, and the style of it was, and how Newton happened. And if you look at this whole year with the zombie and just everything that has occurred, even with the what happened, and I'm not going to say her name for the respect of the family, but what happened to the little girl in Colorado, all those things that happen, they're happening because of the outside forces that exist within this planet, on this planet, and outside of this planet, the dark forces that want to make Earth descend into darkness, and it can happen. It can happen. It won't be permanent. The Creator of all will come. When I say the Creator of all, I don't mean the Bible's version, because the Creator of all wants you to be free. Right? He wants you to be free, or she, depends how you look at it. And if you ever, I tell you to never denounce Jesus, because Jesus' true teachings was to bring you closer to that. Jesus, Jesus did not mean for the church to make him into a false idol, because Jesus, even in the Holy Bible, says the Father is greater than him. The Father is greater than he'll ever be. And that is true, and it should be the Creator. And I don't like calling, him the Father, Lord, or God, because those are only titles. The Creator is a title. There is no words to explain the greatness I can't even say it properly. And give it time, because there'll be signs of that. First, we got to go do some other things, and there are some things coming up, and they're going to prepare us for it. And just open your eyes up, and I hope you guys realize that there is something fishy going on. Look at some of these things, these attacks, not just here and abroad. Like how China school stabbings, so many of them. Why so many? Why does this break out? Some people call it like mass hysteria, but like really, is it mass hysteria, or is it is it is it mass hysteria, or what else is it? I don't believe it's mass hysteria, because how could it be mass hysteria? Really, just people go crazy. What about the things that, yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And then you look in India, there's been a lot of daughters beheaded, and you just look around the world, these really gruesome things that have been happening. And once again, you can't blame YouTube and the computer, because the internet's been around for a long time. It's more than that. And especially here in America with the mass shootings. It's probably been a long time, 25 minutes, so if you made it this far, that'd be fantastic. If not, I don't know, but I hope more people watch this. Take care of yourselves. I'm going to do another video, and I'm going to talk about a subject with the sun, because it's about time I talk about that. Take care, and keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open for news articles, because I tell you, things are changing, and I guarantee you, if you keep your eyes open for news articles, you'll realize they're preparing us. They're preparing you. They're preparing everyone. It's going to happen soon. We're going to know we're not alone. It's going to be beautiful, but it's also going to be a trip. Take care. Peace.